It is the first day of summer and the first day that the House of Commons isn't sitting. So leaders are hitting the road, taking their message to the barbecue near you. Pierre Poilievre is kicking things off in an RV with his wife and kids, while Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in Atlantic Canada today. So how important are these summer tours for each leader? And will they be able to punch through with their message? Let's take that question to the front bench. John Tory, Tom Mulcair, and Christy Kirkup join us today. Christy, I'm going to start with you. Is this summer different than past summers in terms of the political stakes for both of these leaders?
I think the stakes specifically for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau could not be higher right now. I cannot think of a moment in covering him over the course of the last 9 years where the Prime Minister has been facing this do or die moment. You have even reporting today about members of the Liberal caucus, anonymously, relaying the fact that they perhaps would like him to step aside and to get out of the way and to allow them for enough time to have a leadership race before the next election campaign. Justin Trudeau is in the fight of his political life, and you could see him there in Nova Scotia today. He's trying to be that guy. He's trying to, point to the things that the government's doing. He's trying to, I think the frame from the Liberals, they are trying to say, this is a hopeful message. Here's how we're focused on solutions. But at the end of the day, some Liberals think the solution to the problem in the Liberal Party is that the Prime Minister needs to get the boot. So really important summer for him, and frankly for Pierre Poilievre as he tries to continue to make gains and frankly build the infrastructure to what the Conservatives hope will be a majority government. And I'm just curious if Justin Trudeau will remain in this role by the time the summer is over. Yeah,
John, and it's interesting when you consider the fight of his life, because there are also some Liberals that are saying, you know what, let him wear this one and maybe we'll be better off and the damage won't be as bad if he leads us into the election. But also, Justin Trudeau, when he's backed into a corner and he has to fight, that is sometimes when the best version of him comes out.
He's a formidable campaigner. But I'm going to make reference to prayer in a moment, which may be more valuable. But I think that it starts with the by-election on Monday, because I think if the by-election goes poorly in a seat the Liberals have held for 25 years, you'll start to see a much louder chorus of people talking about him going, and he'll have to decide whether he carries on with the summer tour or whether he steps aside. But if he has the summer tour, I think you can see even from where he started today in Atlantic Canada, he's got to go to the places where they hold seats presently and go to places where normally it would be embarrassing to go there, because you'd say, why are you there if you've held the seat for 20 or 25 years, but they're in that kind of trouble that they've got to go there. They've got to focus on talking to the local media, because it gets around you guys, frankly, in terms of, getting a message through that is very difficult for them to get through the national media at this stage of the game. And then I mentioned going to church. And I think, I'm sort of half tongue-in-cheek about this, but I think he should go to every gurdwara, every mosque, every church, or at least one in every place he's visiting, and say a prayer that the economy starts to come back stronger, and that they avoid the kind of stuff they've had just about every month where some fiasco occurs that has to do with execution, often not their doing. It's sometimes public servants or just circumstances, because they need to have kind of a quiet summer in that regard to try to get the message out, and some help from the economy to have people have their own sense of hope that things are getting better. So I think maybe the church visits, I don't know if that'll help unless you believe in prayer or not.
It's funny whether or not he's going to get any divine intervention either, but that you mentioned churches, because he's going to a city this weekend where it was famously said that you can't throw a stone without shattering a stained glass window. He's heading to Montreal, from what we're hearing from the Prime Minister's office, for Fête Saint-Jean. Tom, that is sort of one of those touchstone things that you need to do as a federal leader. You need to go to Quebec and celebrate the Fête Nationale. But that's where Pierre Poilievre is as well, as he's kicking off this tour in an RV with his family. So it almost seems like the Battle of Quebec is really shaping up this early in the game.
Well, it is, because there are 78 seats to be had, and that's quite a large number. I've always said that the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, and Quebec tend to be the ones that can move the most and therefore decide elections. Mr. Poilievre clearly has an outstanding advance team. He is going to events that I know about. I was a Quebec MP and a party leader, but I think it's the first time I've seen a leader from elsewhere in Canada heading to the rodeo. Of course, he'll be at the Stampede in Calgary. He'll flip pancakes there, but he's going to Saint-Aimé-du-Lac in the Charlevoix to a rodeo there, which is a delightful family event. And he's going to get a good reception. He's going to go to the Montgolfière in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. So, keep an eye on him. He's got this figured out. He's going to a place where It appears he can be competitive with the Bloc outside of Greater Montreal, because Greater Montreal is still going to be mostly Liberal. But outside of Greater Montreal, we're talking, 40 some odd seats. He's going to be competitive with the Bloc in most of those seats. And that's why Blanchette, the head of the Bloc, is very nervous, because he knows that. He knows that calculus. These are voters who will go and change and turn on a dime and talk to each other. Social media was invented in Quebec long before anybody had a handheld iPhone. People talk to each other, and they change very quickly how they're going to appreciate. He has to put on Operation Charm. He can be, in his media avails and stuff like that, quite off-putting. He gave an interview yesterday in Montreal that was almost comical, because he blamed absolutely everything that's ever happened on Justin Trudeau. And he's got to be careful he doesn't become a caricature of himself. He's got to start putting a little bit of stuff in the shop window. Harper's telling him, no, don't say anything about what you're going to do. Let them, just beat Trudeau. But that's not going to work. He's going to have to start giving a little bit of a hint which social programs he's going to cut. He can't say he's going to balance the budget, lower taxes, and not cut programs. So he's going to have to start being a little bit clearer about that. But overall, the impression that we had until Trudeau finally, as a Johnny-come-lately, said, oh, by the way, I'm going to Montreal too, because it's Saint Jean-Baptiste weekend. What Trudeau's worried about is what's happening in Toronto, St. Paul on Monday. That's got 100% of his attention right now. He's terrified about it. John, I think, gave such an excellent rundown of it. Nothing more needs to be said, but he's totally nervous about that. Whereas Poilievre is showing confidence, moving into Quebec, going all over the place, meeting people, greeting people, and trying to build up his numbers there. I think it's going to work for Poilievre if he can get rid of the people who tell him, and mention Trudeau in every other sentence and say that he's responsible and everything is his fault because everything's broken. I think people are starting to get a bit tired of that.
Yeah, Tom just mentioned the Festival de Montgolfier. For people who don't know it, it's a hot air balloon festival in Saint-Jean. How important is it for, as Tom was mentioning, Pierre Poilievre not to be blowing hot air, but really to be talking to people about what he wants?
Yeah, I think that, all the polling suggests that, a lot of people don't like Justin Trudeau, but the verdict seems to be, out about Pierre Poilievre and whether he's a likable guy. Mm-hmm. And as he becomes more exposed, I think that is going to be the test of how he's actually able to become that alternative option, and that people are going to be looking closer and, to Tom's point, wondering about his policy proposals, because, it does get a bit old if you're just, again, saying that Justin Trudeau has essentially ruined everything, and then people are going to say, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? I think the thing about Pierre Poilievre's team that I have noticed in the last number of months is that it is so clear that they are extremely experienced. Again, when I talked about building the infrastructure toward a majority, they know what they're doing. They are they essentially have like a war room. I'm sure they're watching this show, and
by the way, he's welcome to come on it. Just to be clear. I mean, sorry, continue on.
And so, they are in full campaign mode. So for all the people who keep talking about, 18 months until the next election, the campaign is underway. Mm-hmm. Gear up for it. This summer is going to be, as a political reporter, I think you and I, Mike, are going to be pretty busy. They're going to be hopping all over the country, and Pierre Poilievre and his team are going to be extremely deliberate about where they're going and what they're doing, because they do, I think, have a very deliberate strategy that's been at play for months. And I think that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are trying to retool their game. And again, that is the difference that Tom outlined, the difference between essentially trying to play catch up or, really showing confidence. And Pierre Poilievre certainly has those, that wind in his sails.
John, I've got about 15 seconds left in this question to you. You mentioned St. Paul, Toronto, St. Paul, and that by-election. So which one of these two leaders will be in that riding, raising their hands in victory on that day?
I don't know. I think it's really going to be a photo finish. And that's a surprising thing to say when you've got a seat that's been held by the Liberals for 26 years. But I think the war in the Middle East and other things have complicated it for them, and plus all of the stuff we've been talking about in terms of Mr. Trudeau's unpopularity. So I think it's going to be a photo finish, and it will come down, as these things often do in a by-election, to organization and who gets the votes out. I'm not trying to dodge answering. I just think it's very close.
Okay, and we'll be watching. We appreciate this. John Tory, Tom Mulcair, Christy Kirkup. We got to let